Hey guys, if you like my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it, thanks. And also let me know where y'all are watching from and at what time. I'm curious. I woke up to Miguel punching me in the shoulder and screaming something I couldn't hear over the deafening roar of the engines. Outside the tiny plane's window, all I saw was green, waves and waves of jungle rising fast. We were going down. "Brace!" Miguel yelled. That's the last clear thing I remember before the world turned upside down. The impact came in stages. First, the tail ripped away with a sound like God tearing paper. Then the left wing clipped a tree, and we spun. My harness saved me, but the jolt slammed my head into the window, cracking it like a spiderweb. A heartbeat later, the world stopped moving. But not me. My vision burst into stars and static. Darkness came like a curtain. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the jungle floor, blinking up at trees that swayed like they were unsure whether to keep standing. My head felt like it had been used to test the effectiveness of a frying pan. Something wet dripped down my neck. My ears were ringing. "Hey," someone said, and a familiar, anxious face leaned over me. "You alive or just really chill about concussions?" I blinked again. "Miguel?" He grinned. "That's what the ID says." I sat up too fast and nearly passed out again. Behind Miguel, the wreckage of the Cessna was still smoking. A crumpled wing stuck out from a tree trunk like a snapped bird limb. The nose was buried in a muddy slope. Our pilot, Rodrigo, I think his name was slumped over the yoke, motionless. Miguel didn't say it, but I knew. We were the only ones left. "Where are we?" I asked. He helped me stand. "Somewhere in southern Mexico. Coordinates are useless now. GPS hasn't worked since we crossed the mountains, but—" He pointed past a ridge. In the distance, barely visible through the trees, were stone pillars rising from the green. "I think we crashed near the ruins." "You serious? I mean, when I pray for a close encounter with a lost civilization, this isn't how I picture it," Miguel said, dusting dirt off his backpack. "But hey, silver linings." I looked down at my shaking hands. Rodrigo's dead. Miguel grew quiet. "I know." A bird screamed somewhere in the canopy. The jungle suddenly felt very alive and very hungry. We salvaged what gear we could. A half-crushed water bottle, a flare gun, 2 flashlights, and Miguel's satchel of notes and maps. The machete I packed had miraculously survived, blade nicked but usable. We left the wreck behind. I glanced back just once, at the twisted steel and the silent figure in the cockpit. And then we walked into the trees. "Next time," I muttered, trying to lighten the mood, "we take a cruise." Miguel chuckled. "Yeah, what could go wrong with pirates?" We hiked in silence for hours, the jungle swallowing us like a python digesting dinner. Every step felt like a negotiation, with the roots, the bugs, the vines trying to trip us. Miguel moved like he belonged here, brushing aside leaves, muttering to himself about glyphs and grid lines. I was less graceful. At one point, a bird the size of a grapefruit screamed from a branch, and I nearly threw the machete in panic. Miguel laughed for 10 minutes straight. Eventually, the terrain sloped upward, and we reached a ridge. What we saw on the other side made both of us stop cold. The jungle fell away into a basin, and there, shrouded in mist and thick foliage, were the ruins. Stone walls jutted from the earth at awkward angles, half swallowed by time. Moss and vines coated everything. A massive staircase rose from the center, leading to what looked like a temple or ziggurat. It was less Indiana Jones and more Mother Nature's tombstone. "You seeing this?" Miguel whispered, reverent. "Unless I'm concussed and hallucinating, which, to be fair, is possible." He slapped my back. "Welcome to Jaguar's Rest." Miguel had spent years obsessing over these ruins, a lost civilization referenced only in a few fragmented Spanish journals from the 1500s. Most scholars dismissed it as myth, but not Miguel. He was convinced it existed, and apparently so was the universe, because here it was. We made our way down into the basin. The air grew thicker, quieter, like we'd walked into a museum and were afraid to speak too loud. Miguel lit a small flare to see in the dense shade. Carvings emerged from the gloom, serpents, warriors, suns, and jaguars. Lots of jaguars, some standing upright, some eating men. One carving showed a jaguar with human eyes holding a heart aloft. Miguel was in heaven. This is pre-Columbian, but the technique, look at the depth on this relief. That's not just art. That's storytelling. Yeah, the kind that ends with someone screaming and losing their spleen. We reached the temple's entrance. It was framed by two massive stone jaguar heads, mouths open in a permanent snarl. Miguel ran a hand along the fanged muzzle of one. They used to believe jaguars were protectors, he murmured, guardians between the living and the dead. Cool, I said, so they probably won't mind us poking around, right? Inside it was dark and colder. The air smelled like old stone and forgotten things. Our flashlights swept across pillars covered in more glyphs, sacrifices, rituals, something that might have been astronomy or a warning. In the main chamber we found it, a stone altar, and behind it a wall covered in gold masks, jaguar sculptures, and bones. Human bones, arranged in neat little piles like museum exhibits no one ever meant to see. Miguel's voice trembled. We just found history. I wanted to believe that was all it was, but the way those masks looked at us, it felt more like we'd just woken something up. I never thought gold could make me nervous, but standing in that chamber, I kept expecting one of the masks to blink. Miguel was already halfway to the back wall, practically vibrating with excitement. These patterns, this isn't just art, it's language. Look at this one. He pointed to a jaguar carved from black stone, crouched mid-pounce, fangs bared, obsidian eyes catching our flashlight beams like they knew we were there. I didn't move any closer. I'm looking, I'm appreciating, I'm also ready to leave. Miguel ignored me. He reached up, running his fingers along a row of glyphs that stretched around the altar. They circled the base of a large mural etched into the wall, one that showed figures clutching gold while a massive jaguar spirit stalked them from above. It wasn't subtle. Every panel told the same story. People took treasure. Jaguar chased them. People ended up in pieces. It's a warning, Miguel said quietly. Take from the sacred ground, and the guardian comes. I shivered. That seems very literal. He turned to me, eyes bright. We need to document this. This is the find of the century. This changes everything we know about... He stopped. I followed his gaze to a small golden idol on the altar. A jaguar, stylized, mouth open in a roar, with a red gemstone set between its eyes. It practically dared us to take it. I don't like that thing, I said, already backing away. Miguel stepped closer. It's perfect. If we bring this back, it proves the site exists. We don't need the whole treasure room, just this. Did we look at the same murder mural? He hesitated. Then, with the kind of careful reverence usually reserved for unexploded grenades, he picked up the idol. Nothing happened. No rocks fell, no dart shot from the walls. The air didn't even shift. We stood there in silence, both of us waiting for something. Eventually, I exhaled. Well, that was anticlimactic, Miguel grinned. Told you, superstitions, myths. We're walking out of here rich and published. We left the chamber with the idol wrapped in a cloth and shoved deep into Miguel's satchel. As we stepped outside, a gust of wind stirred the leaves, sharp and sudden. The jungle, which had been humming with distant insect life, fell completely still. Is it just me, I asked, or did it get quiet? Miguel frowned, slowly turning in a circle. No birds, no monkeys, not even the bugs. A low rumble rolled through the earth, almost like distant thunder. The leaves on the trees shivered. From somewhere behind the temple, deep in the trees, we heard a long, guttural growl. It wasn't a cat, not quite. It sounded bigger, older. We stood frozen. Then Miguel said what I was trying not to. I think we just woke it up. We didn't run, not at first. We just stood there outside the temple, staring into the jungle like two tourists realizing the souvenir shop sells actual curses. The growl came again, closer this time, lower. It vibrated in my chest, like it was inside me somehow. Miguel took a slow step backward, and I mirrored him. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us needed to. Whatever it was, it knew where we were. I don't want to panic you, I whispered, but I'd feel much safer behind literally any other tree in the hemisphere. Miguel didn't laugh. That's when I knew it was serious. We turned and started walking. Not running, not yet. The kind of walk where your legs want to bolt but your brain's still writing the exit strategy. The ruins faded behind us, swallowed by vines and shadows. But the jungle ahead didn't feel safer. It felt aware, like we were walking through something alive. The leaves trembled above us without wind. Roots bulged from the earth in snaking coils. Everything felt aimed at us. We moved faster. A root snagged my boot and I stumbled forward, catching myself on Miguel. "Sorry, jungle's trying to assassinate me." He didn't answer. Then we heard it. Not a growl this time, but the sound of movement, heavy, deliberate, something large brushing through undergrowth. It wasn't crashing like a panicked animal, it was hunting, stalking. Miguel yanked me behind a thick tree trunk. We crouched there, holding our breath. That's when I saw it. Just 30 feet away, half hidden in the green, 2 glowing yellow eyes floated above the ground, too high for any normal animal. The eyes blinked once, slowly. Then they locked onto me. I forgot how to breathe. The shape behind those eyes was jaguar-shaped, but wrong. Too tall, too lean. Shoulders like a man, legs like a cat, muscles moving beneath patchy black fur. It stepped forward silently, revealing a long tail that twitched like it was thinking. In one hand, yes, it had hands, was a broken mask, one of the gold ones from the temple. Miguel squeezed my arm. It followed us. "No kidding," I mouthed. I didn't blink. I didn't move. The creature stood for what felt like a year, then vanished back into the jungle without a sound. No rustle, no footprints, just gone. Miguel pulled me up. "We need to go, now." "Right behind you," I said, already turning. We ran. Branches tore at our faces. Vines whipped our legs. I didn't care. I just ran. We didn't talk again until we hit a narrow clearing and collapsed to catch our breath. Miguel looked at me with a haunted expression. "It's not just a spirit, it's a guardian. We took something that belongs to it." I nodded, still panting. "So, return policy?" He didn't smile. That's when we realized the jungle wasn't letting us go. We didn't sleep that night. We tried. Built a fire, huddled near it like cavemen who just discovered, terrified. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the dark sent us bolt upright, machetes in hand. The jungle around us had changed. It felt intentional. The paths we'd taken on the way in now led in circles. Trees leaned in, vines closed behind us like curtains, and always, always we felt watched. "This is classic guardian spirit behavior," Miguel muttered, thumbing through his battered field notebook like it was going to start spitting out survival tips. "Ancient myths say these creatures protect sacred places, usually bound by blood rituals, territory lines, or offerings. If they're awakened—" "They hunt," I finished. "We get it. We poked the cursed bear." "Jaguar," he corrected automatically. I gave him a look. "Sorry." By morning we were hollow-eyed and shaking. We packed quickly, even skipped breakfast, which should tell you how serious things were, because I once ate beef jerky during a flat tire. We followed a slope east, hoping to find a river or a trail or anything human, but the jungle wouldn't play nice. Every few hundred feet we found signs, warning us, mocking us. Claw marks gouged deep into tree trunks, bones half buried in the mud. Once we passed a rock where something, had laid out 3 gold coins in a neat little row like bait. Miguel stared at those coins for a long time. "You okay?" I asked, nudging him. He jumped. "Yeah, fine, it's strange. The legends always say you shouldn't steal. But what if we're not stealing? What if we're preserving?" I tilted my head. "Miguel, are you arguing we keep the treasure? I mean just one piece. That idol alone." Something cracked behind us. We spun. Nothing. Then we saw it, on a ridge maybe 20 feet away, crouched in a shaft of sunlight like it had posed for us. The guardian, muscles rippling under fur. Golden eyes fixed on us, no sound, no snarl, just presence. I couldn't move, neither could Miguel. Then it opened its mouth and let out a sound I can't describe. It wasn't a growl. It was layered, like a scream folded into thunder, folded into a growl. My skin felt like it peeled back from my bones. I grabbed Miguel and ran. Branches tore at us. Roots reached for our ankles. The forest wanted us to fall, to stop, to give in. The guardian didn't chase, not that we saw, but it didn't need to. It was always near, just out of sight, breathing down our necks. We collapsed on a riverbank, hearts punching our ribs. Miguel sat up slowly. "It's not chasing us," he whispered. "It's chasing the gold." He opened his bag and pulled out the idol. It gleamed like it was laughing. We both stared at it in silence. Then Miguel asked the question I'd been dreading. What if we throw it away and it doesn't stop? We tried to toss it. Miguel stood on the riverbank holding the jaguar idol like it was a dead phone that might explode if you pressed the wrong button. He wound up like a pitcher and hurled it into the water with a splash that echoed through the trees. We waited and waited. The jungle didn't relax. The tension didn't break. The silence felt even heavier than before, like the forest was holding its breath to see what we'd do next. "I don't think that worked," I said. Miguel turned slowly toward me, drenched in sweat and mud. "Yeah, thanks, Sherlock." The air snapped, literally snapped, like something massive had just stepped on a branch. Not far, maybe 20 yards. We didn't look, we just ran. And this time it chased us. I couldn't hear it breathing, I couldn't see it, but I felt it. The ground quaked behind us in perfectly timed steps, always just far enough back to let us think we were getting away. Vines whipped at our faces, mud sucked at our boots. At one point, Miguel stumbled and nearly fell into a ravine. I caught his arm, yanked him up, and we didn't stop to argue. "This isn't hunting," I gasped between strides. "This is hurting." Miguel nodded, grim-faced. "It's driving us somewhere." "That's comforting." We stumbled into a narrow canyon flanked by steep stone walls, natural but lined with moss-covered carvings. Half men, half jaguar creatures, eyes gouged out, gold melting from their mouths. At the end of the canyon, a black pit yawned in the earth, more shrine than cave, ringed with broken offerings and shattered bones, and at its edge, a crude stone bowl. Empty. Miguel stared at it like he'd just seen his own obituary carved in granite. "This is an offering site," he said breathlessly. "This is where they brought the gold back to appease it." "No offense to ancient tradition," I said, scanning the woods, "but we already threw the idol into a river." Miguel's face went pale. He dug frantically through his bag. I watched his expression shift from panic to confusion to something worse. He pulled out the idol, intact, dry. We both stared. "Okay," I said, "I think it likes you." I threw this away. I watched it sink. I took a cautious step back. Either the river spat it out or it walked back on its own. Both options are nightmare fuel. The trees rustled again. The guardian was near, so near we could feel the heat of its breath like summer wind. Miguel dropped to his knees and placed the idol gently into the bowl. "Take it. Please, we're sorry." Silence. Then something shifted. The air lightened. The birds began to chirp again. No growl, no chase, just jungle. The guardian was gone, or satisfied, or watching from the shadows. "I think," Miguel said, voice trembling, "we bought ourselves a head start." We didn't talk much after the canyon. The idol was gone, or so Miguel thought, and the jungle, for the first time in days, felt like it wasn't breathing down our necks. Birds returned. A breeze stirred the leaves without malice. It was like walking through a place that had finally exhaled. Miguel looked lighter, like he believed we'd made it. I didn't feel the same, because tucked deep in my pack, beneath a damp roll of socks and a ruined notebook, was the other idol. Yeah, I'd kept one. I told myself it was insurance, that the offering would satisfy whatever rules the guardian followed, and we could both leave with something to show for it. I even rationalized that I hadn't stolen it, I'd earned it. Surviving cursed ruins and ancient jungle spirits should count for something, right? It weighed nothing, but it felt like it was dragging me under with every step. We stopped to rest in a grove where tree roots rose out of the ground like sleeping serpents. Miguel slumped against a trunk, exhausted but smiling. "We're going to make it," he said. "Maybe a day more if we're lucky." I nodded and forced a smile. "Yeah, lucky." He closed his eyes. I waited until his breathing slowed, then unzipped my pack, just to check. There it was. The idol stared up at me, jaguar mouth open in a silent roar, red gem gleaming like a warning light. I don't know why I pulled it out. Maybe to reassure myself, maybe to make sure it hadn't multiplied or grown fangs. But the moment it touched the air, the jungle changed. The wind died, the birds stopped, even Miguel stirred. "What's—" He looked at my hands, then his eyes went wide. "What did you do?" My mouth was dry. "I kept one, just one." He was on his feet in a second. "You idiot! You brought it back with us? I thought if we left one it'd be enough." A snap echoed through the trees. Loud, deliberate. Miguel's voice dropped. "It's coming." We turned, and there they were. Those yellow eyes, closer than ever, framed between two gnarled trunks like some ancient portrait brought to life. The guardian didn't growl. It just watched. I didn't think. I ran forward and hurled the idol into the undergrowth like it was on fire. It vanished into the green. The eyes didn't blink. Not at first. Then slowly they closed, and when they opened again, the light in them was gone. The jungle exhaled. Miguel sagged, breathing hard. "Never again." I nodded, too ashamed to speak. We walked on, the path ahead feeling lighter now, but behind us the jungle stayed quiet, watching, just in case I changed my mind. The next morning the jungle was different. Not normal, not safe, but indifferent. The vines still drooped like ropes, the trees still towered like cathedrals. But the presence that had been pressing down on us was gone. The air was lighter, the silence no longer heavy with judgment. It had let us go. We hiked eastward along a narrow deer path Miguel spotted through the underbrush. It wound along a ridge, past roots as thick as my torso and boulders overgrown with moss. For the first time since the crash, we could walk without flinching at every sound. Miguel was quiet, but not cold, more like someone catching their breath after almost drowning. Every now and then I caught him looking over his shoulder, not in fear, but as if he was checking to see if something he'd left behind had decided to follow. I didn't blame him. I hadn't told him why I kept the idol. Part of me still didn't know. Was it greed, desperation, pride, or just a stupid need to believe we deserved something after everything we'd survived? Either way, the jungle had made its point. We weren't welcome, and we were lucky to be alive. "You think we're close?" I asked, breaking the long silence. Miguel shaded his eyes and pointed ahead. "See that cut in the trees? That's a logging route. It means roads, maybe even people, with trucks and sandwiches." I'd marry a sandwich right now. "You and bread have always had a complicated relationship." I smirked, grateful for the joke. That's how I knew we were really coming out of it. Miguel was making fun of me again. A couple hours later we heard something that made my knees wobble, the low rumble of a motor. We scrambled through the brush and stumbled onto a dirt road where a battered utility truck sat parked, the driver lounging against the hood smoking a cigarette. He looked up, startled, as we came out of the trees, looking like we'd just crawled out of a history documentary about missing explorers. "My God, are you okay?" he said, dropping his smoke. Miguel nodded, voice hoarse. "Plane crash days ago, near the ruins." The man didn't question it, just waved us over, gave us water, and radioed for help. I remember collapsing in the truck bed, staring at the sky through branches, thinking, we made it, we're out. But even as we bumped down that road toward something like civilization, I kept glancing to the seat beside me. Miguel sat there, grinning, humming some off-key melody about tacos, and yet, something gnawed at the back of my mind. I didn't know it yet, not fully, but a storm was coming, not in the sky, but in my memory. Something was wrong. The rescue chopper came at dawn the next day, kicking up red dust as it settled into the clearing behind the ranger outpost. By then I was clean, fed, and numbly watching the sunrise with a cup of lukewarm coffee in my hands. Miguel had gone to lie down in one of the bunks, said he needed rest. I'd nodded, silently agreeing. We hadn't talked much since the truck ride, just enough to confirm we were both still processing everything. The rescue team swarmed me with questions. Name, crash location, how I survived. I answered what I could, tried to stay factual, focused. The problem was, the facts weren't lining up. One of the officials, a middle-aged woman with a clipboard and military posture, flipped through the manifest. "You said your friend's name was Miguel Torres?" "Yeah," I said. He was with me. She frowned. We have him listed as a passenger, but he didn't make it. I blinked. No, that's wrong. He was with me. We walked together. We survived together. She gently cut me off. Sir, he died in the crash. His body was recovered yesterday during the wreckage sweep. You were found alone. I stared at her. That was impossible. I remembered him, shouting during the crash, dragging me from the wreck, laughing as we found the ruins, arguing about the gold. I remembered everything. Except now that she said it, pieces didn't quite fit. Like how the medics never checked Miguel, how only one bed was ever used, how the driver of the truck never spoke to him, only to me. My knees felt weak. I sat down hard on a bench. One of the rangers handed me a bottle of water. You sure you weren't alone out there, amigo? We didn't see anyone else. You were talking to yourself when we picked you up. No. My voice shook. He was real, I swear. We talked. He saved me. I reached for my bag, fumbling with the zipper. I needed proof, something to ground me. And then I found it. The compass. A scratched brass compass with Miguel's initials etched on the side. I remembered it clearly. He'd clipped it to his belt before the flight. It was his favorite thing. He joked it was the only reason he never got lost. It was in my pocket now, but I hadn't packed it, and I hadn't taken it from the crash. I ran my thumb across the cool surface, and something inside me cracked. The truth slipped in, slow and cold. Miguel had died. I'd carried him in my mind through blood, through terror, through jungle. My own brain had conjured him, maybe to keep me sane, maybe to keep me moving. But the compass? That wasn't my imagination. That was him. Somehow, somewhere. That night, after the medical checks and the endless questions, they finally left me alone in the bunkhouse. The jungle was far behind me now, but I could still smell it, mud, stone, and smoke. I sat on the edge of the bed, turning Miguel's compass over and over in my hands like it might give me answers. I wanted to believe it was a trick of memory, a trauma response, my brain doing gymnastics to keep me from falling apart. But the compass was real. Not some blurry figment, not a dream I couldn't shake. It was scratched the same way I remembered. The initials, MT, still etched into the brass. The little hairline crack in the glass cover from when he dropped it back in college. I'd given him hell for that. Told him a cracked compass was asking to get lost. He just grinned and said, "Sometimes the cracks show you the way." I turned the dial slowly. It spun, hesitated, and then clicked into place. North. The needle held steady. I let out a long breath somewhere between a laugh and a sob. If he had really died in the crash, if I'd been alone this whole time, then how did I survive? I'm not a survival expert. I don't know how to read Mayan glyphs. I would have walked in circles, eaten something poisonous, or gotten myself swallowed by a sinkhole before I made it out. But every step, Miguel had been there, telling me where to go, yanking me away from danger, making me move. And that idol? I didn't remember taking it, not clearly, but he'd convinced me to give it up, to put it back. He'd been the better voice in my head when mine was failing. So maybe, just maybe, he wasn't just in my head. Maybe something deeper had happened in that jungle. Something old, something that could bend the rules. We'd disturbed sacred ground, triggered ancient forces, and somehow, in the cracks between life and death, Miguel stayed with me. Not as a ghost, not as a hallucination, as a friend, doing what he always did best, getting me home in one piece. I held the compass tight in my fist and wiped my eyes with the back of my sleeve. "Thanks, man," I whispered. Outside the window, the jungle was just a shadow now, silent under the stars. But for a moment I thought I saw movement, just at the tree line, a figure standing there, hands in his pockets, smiling like he always did when he knew something I didn't. He waved, and then he was gone.